The Nords are coming. Some of you brave souls will choose to resist them. But if you're going to stand strong against this raging wall of iron, you'll need some help. Allow me the honor to be your war advisor and give you tactics for the upcoming battle. Study your foe wisely, or perish in the snow. And you can always count on the diplomatic system to interrupt you here. This is perfect though. Let's see. Make sure. Yeah, they got tons of infantry. We've got the right army here. Welcome back again, friends, to another episode of Tactical Enlightenment. Our YouTube channel is dedicated to all things Bannerlord related. We continue to explore the Bannerlord 1.32 beta, and we continue to simulate what it's going to feel like to face a Nordic invasion. Up here in the frozen north, we are simulating, of course, they're Sturgian units. We have a mod that we're using for this, but we are simulating that the Sturgians are invading. And there's a large force here opposing our Battanian force. We're going to do some tests today. Now, briefly about this mod. The mod is in the video description if you want to use it as practice against the Nords. This was made by a mod maker on the Nexus server, and it approximates what the Nords are going to be like, right down to their Ulfendar, right? These nasty glaive-wielding wolf dudes. All right, now our Battanian force here is maybe not quite as many archers as I would prefer, but I still think it's going to function. And this is also a bit of a challenge series today. So we're going to save, I have a guy on Reddit who always gives me a hard time. We're friends, but it's a competitive friendliness. He always tells me I did this wrong or did that wrong in a battle. I dig it, right? We're sort of kin in tactics. And they do have a shit ton of infantry, so it's going to be interesting. And Justin's point basically is that the Battanians are finished because of the skirmishers and shields of the Nords. Well, I think we've got tactics to answer that, but of course we'll see how things look here. Now we've got a perfect situation here for a save game, because what we can do is come back to this, do an auto resolve, and then hopefully, if it's relatively simple with advanced tactics, we can still win this with basic tactics. We'll give you guys an RTS overhead. That way you guys who are less experienced or less comfortable in command can still pull off victory against the Nords, right? We're a one-stop shop for Bannerlord when it comes to battlefields. We want you to leave our channel dominating your enemy. All right, let's make some sense of this here. 1, 2, 3. We've got 3 infantry divisions, and this first fight is going to be on the fast side. And what I mean by that is I'm not going to spend 15 minutes talking about it. We are going to have a specialized approach with 3 different infantry divisions, and this is part of the reason I think Battania is the new powerhouse in Calradia. This tier 3 or tier 5 Falksman is incredibly savage, and we have a bunch actually in the first division, so let's get creative here, right? Let's make a big division of shock troops. And instead, I think I'm going to show players what I think of the Battanian horsemen, right? People make fun of the Battanian horsemen. Their tier 4 and tier 5 cavalry are garbage, but let me show you a good use for them in today's episode. Get our captains assigned here, and I can finish telling you about the rest of our army. We got 2 archer divisions, a skirmisher division is a 6th, so there's your wildlings and stuff like that. We're going to get captains assigned in a defensive manner, right? So our 1st and 2nd divisions in this battle are going to play defense. That's unfamiliar to a lot of players, but it's one of the keys to success in Bannerlord or any other proxy for war, right? Sports, you don't have 10 guys run down the field in soccer or football very often, right? You've got some defensive players. All right, 4th, 5th archers, 6th skirmishers, 3rd is shock troops, right? The two-handed falxmen. The Battanians have incredibly powerful shock troops. I think I could make an argument that they're the best tier 5 infantry in the game. They're not as versatile as the wildling, but they're unbelievably deadly. They just maul everything in sight, and we've done videos to cover that. You add that to the wildlings, you add that to the Fiend champions, and then the fact that the skirmishers, the mounted skirmishers here, are sort of underrated. The Battanian mounted skirmishers are very usable. We will show you how we use those as well. And I think the recipe is for Battanian dominance. Let's see here. What do we want to do? Skirmishers over here towards the right. And what I'm going to do with our 7th Corps is basically have them out in front, our skirmisher cav. You get that by selecting that little javelin. And I like just putting them out in front. Same thing with the 2nd Division. A lot of guys, they want to charge with their cavalry. We're going to charge with our Jav Cav, but not with our 2nd Division. Our 2nd Division is our non-Javelry cavalry. In other words, it's our Battanian Scout and Battanian Horsemen. 2 pretty trash cavalry units. We're going to dismount them right away. Like this is to me, it's just the best way to use them. All right, so the 7th looks good. There's lots of skirmishers there. We'll hold fire till the enemy's a little closer, and they're probably going to have 400 or 500 infantry in this battle, right? We're outnumbered, and of course the Nords are going to have huge amounts of infantry. It obviously remains to be seen if there's special coding written in to how they approach battles, right? Are they going to have 3 or 4 different divisions of infantry, or is it going to come in like this, where it looks like a Black Friday Zerg, everybody just pouring forward? Not a lot of order here, and hopefully they have some kind of legitimate tactics, right? Flanking, squares, something, because this is not going to work. All right. So we've got our little trap set here, cavalry lines out in front. We're going to pound them with archers. That's a given, right? We have the best archer in the game. However, they're going to hold their shields up. So what are we going to do about that, right? We're going to attack them from the side. We're going to attack them from different angles, and we're going to try to distract them with this square. All I did there is just tell all those worthless cavalry, you guys are no longer cavalry. You are sacrificial infantry. You guys are such bad cavalry. We're going to make you stand there in a square and get beat on today. A little punishment for them. Now the 3rd Division I'm sending over there to the side, and now we can release our Jav Cav, right? The enemy's starting to come in. They're going to start getting pelted with javelins. What I like to do with these guys is wait till the enemy's close and then charge. You can also have them fire, of course. The reason I like doing that is because if you have them charge too early, they'll get smoked. They'll get killed by infantrymen. I want them charging now that the enemy's trying to close and they're busy with the rest of our troops. Archers are working, of course, and this is obviously the key. This is the best unit in Bannerlord. I don't care what anybody says. They're better than Khans Guards, period. Their firing rate, they're just absolutely deadly. The Fiend champion. All right, so we've got another square over here. That's the 1st Division. It's a little tiny defensive division, but that's going to absorb a little bit of attention. And in the center here, these worthless Battanian horsemen are going to earn their pay today. Just going to pull this square right back into the middle of this gauntlet. We've got skirmishers and archers raking everything over here on our right. That 1st Division is getting some attention. We can pull our skirmishers back just a touch. And the enemy's getting a few kills. Now the 3rd Division over there, they can now start to charge, right? These guys are deadly infantry. Initially, I would prefer they played sort of passive. In other words, wait till the enemy's distracted, then have them charge, right? They're going to come in a big group and just cut everything to pieces. They are utterly lethal. Now, you want to protect them from archers. In this case, the Sturgians don't have a lot of archers, right? The Norse Sturgians here don't have many archers, so we're not too worried about it. The square's got the attention. And it looks good so far. We can start to kite just a little bit here. Now we're going to get reinforcements soon. And one of the keys with reinforcements is that because we've started defensive like this, in fact, I think I see some now. Or maybe those are our no, those are just our horses. What'll happen is our reinforcements are going to trap all these Sturgians. There's still 350 Nordic Sturgians here, right? There's a lot of them still because they started with 500 and something. But very soon we're going to get reinforcements behind them while they're shot in the front with archers. 100 damage? Wow, I just got drilled by somebody for 100. You don't see that very often. And it's messy, right? They have so much infantry, it's starting to leak out. It destroyed the 3rd Division, it looks like. The squares are almost defeated, but we have this division this infantry vanguard in such a bad spot. There go the reinforcements. Look at them right on the other side of the enemy there. You have them insta-charge. Same thing with the archers. If they're moving, tell them to stop. In other words, if they're moving, tell them to charge and they will start shooting. You want them to instantly start doing damage instead of move, because your reinforcements often will go to where your other archers are. That's the last thing we want. We want them standing still because they're in perfect position. They're behind the enemy, shooting them in the back. Our other archers here are shooting him in the face. These other ones over here are shooting him in the ball sack, and the enemy's going to die with arrows in their testicles. Now I'm going to distract the enemy here while we reset. This is an advanced tip. There's 300 and something more troops coming, and there's a new wave of the enemy coming. What I'm doing is I'm sacrificing about a quarter of our infantry and bringing the rest back to us. This buys us time. Meanwhile, our archers are firing away. It gives the enemy something to chew on while we prepare to kill them by hitting them over the head with a pan. Right, we're distracting here. Sun Tzu, we're listening to the masters of war. I can do a little bit of cleanup here. Get rid of some of this scum trying to get to our archers. That is the key, obviously. When you're using Battania, if you can keep your archers protected, game over, right? You have the best archers in the game. If they don't fight until late in the battle, it's just over, right? Unless you're outnumbered, 20 to 1, you win. Personally, I've advocated for a long time that they nerf the Battanian Fiend Champ. I think it's way too strong. Same thing with the Consguard, but until they do so, we might as well. Our channel's purpose is to identify things that you can use to your advantage here, is to give you guys help, give you guys guides. How could I say anything other than the Battanians are dominant? Now, we have our skirmishers sitting back here, and I just told them to hold fire because the next wave of Nords are coming in to die. Now, we're just going to drag this square around in front of them and let them be skewered by enfilade fire. They're being melted. I can run up here and charge if I want to, but I don't even need to fight, right? We can have our skirmishers charge in, the reserve cavalry charges in, and I feel like Longshanks in the second battle of Braveheart, send in the reserves. And then he leaves the field. Shall we retire? Send us message of our victory, right? Because this battle's over. You can look at the power bar, but also the positioning of the troops. We also probably have a whole nother round of reinforcements. And then you look at the death span, right? It looks like the stock market of late. It's just fizzing green. And the enemy's coming in for another taste, but it doesn't matter. Now, at this point, you can start to charge with archers. Finally, some of these guys are out of ammo. That means they've killed a lot of troops. Charge. Everybody gets to charge. And that's what's so deadly about the Fiend Champs. They just killed dozens of guys each, whatever. They just mauled it. Now they come up and they're some of the absolute best shock troops in the game. It really is sort of absurd. Even if they badly nerfed their archery, they would still be the best archer and best infantry in the game. Now, these Nords / Sturgians are holding on for dear life, but this battle is not just kind of over, it's way over. Look at the death span. They're not getting any kills and just flattened and sent packing. Now, obviously, we don't know exactly how strong the Nords are going to be, but we got a pretty good idea, right? There's only so much dynamism you can have with infantry, and the Nords are just not going to be a threat for this Battanian force. Unless the Battanians get nerfed, which I don't see coming anytime soon. This is going to be the best kingdom in the game for tactics. The only other kingdom that's close for tactics, I guess, is the Khazate. And of course, eventually we will do one of these episodes for the Khazate. But 360 deaths and 1,200 kills, right? So we got a 4-to-1 kill ratio, even though we're facing... So you're wrong there, Justin. Apologies. Well, I'm not going to apologize. You're just wrong. That's all there is to it. Score 1 for the Fiend Champs, right? Or score 20 for the Fiend Champs. These guys just absolutely raked it. And I'll be honest, I'm not surprised at all, right? This was basically the expected result. Of course, tactics are essential. So let's explore outside of tactics. What else can we do here to basically prove that, well, I bet they're going to lose an auto-resolve too. I guess we'll do an auto-resolve, then we'll do an easier battle. That way you guys have a clear path to follow. But I think even with easier tactics, they're just going to completely shred this Nordic force. All right, we are reloaded here. We'll do this real quick. We're just going to send troops, and they have no advantages here, right? So you hit send troops, even though you know, even though we have a good-sized army here, good troops, in theory, good captains, maybe, no, they're not going to win. They're getting blown out, in fact. Like, it's barely a 1-to-1 kill ratio. Obviously, that means the enemy's going to have a bunch of troops left. Looks like 500 plus, and defeat in big capital letters. So don't auto-resolve. Let's go ahead and reload. All right, so let's sit up straight here. Let's do some simple tactics for you. This tactical mode, I guess we'll call it, should be followable by the vast majority of comfortable commanders. You are going to have to do some movement here. You are going to have to understand some concepts. But I think if you just copy what we do here at the beginning of this episode against a large force of Nordic infantry, you will win. I think that's the bottom line. You know, you saw the auto-resolve. We're not supposed to win this battle, but with some simplified tactics here, understanding the enemy's approach, I think we can lead you guys to victory. Get our captains assigned here real quick. Obviously, you always want to do this, right? You want to glean those extra 5 or 10% damage reduction from this perk and that perk. This is pretty important, as we've illustrated in a few episodes on the channel. Your captains, your perks, your banners, these are very important things for success. This should just be something you do every day, like brushing your teeth, right? Make sure your divisions are set up well. So the 2nd and 7th is cavalry. Again, the 7th is Jav Cav, right? I want to make that distinction. One division plays defense, the other one attacks, right? So the 2nd out in front in a shield wall, they will come and form a defensive line, or a defensive square, rather. We're probably just going to use the center approach here. If the enemy approaches you at an odd angle, it's going to be hard for the new player because you're not going to have the adaptability. That is why we try to teach tactics on the channel, so that you understand the principles, not just copying what we're doing here. Once you understand, that we're trapping the enemy in a bunch of different divisions, line of sight, so to speak, then you could start doing your own tactics and you won't need our help. We're trying to teach you how to fish, not give you a fish. All right, so let's set the 7th up again. We could do a circle here. A circle works better if you have like shock troops you want to put in there, but it's still effective because they defend themselves and they fire javelins out from that circle. It actually kind of looks like a heart. My wife would approve. All right, so we'll dismount the 2nd, stick them in the middle here, and they go into a square. That's F2, F5. If you've never done that before, you need to learn that. Squares are probably one of the most important tactics in the game. It's defense. And what did I say earlier, right? You need defense in Bannerlord. There's tons of enemy troops coming up to attack us. We need that defense. Now, if you're wondering why the 3rd Division is back a ways, that's because we're going to do basically an all attack. Everybody's going to attack at the same time. It's the old F1, F3, right? Select everybody and then F1, F3. Now, a lot of guys, they're like, I thought that doesn't work. It does when you do it at the right moment, right? There's 500 enemy forces. They're coming in here. And the reason I designed this formation here, right, with the archers spread around and the shock troops behind everybody, is so that once we get to this point, right, and the enemy's kind of in the middle, surrounded by all these different units, F1, F3, right, the famous charge, now it works because the enemy's getting softened up. They're getting shot by arrows. Every single guy here can charge. You just pull this square aside, and now the moment is right? All these units surrounding the infantry, everybody charge. Now look at the shock troops come up. The skirmishers will charge up, and the archers on charge will still shoot unless they can't see. Then they'll move forward to shoot. And look at that, right? I'm not doing much here. All we did is charge, and the screen just flushed. We just got reinforcements, so it wiped out the back end of the Sturgeon force. Now, you could just leave it on F1, F3, and you actually might do okay, because your archers would move forward and your infantry would move forward. What I would recommend is you reset it, though, and maybe we'll show you both here. Let's let it just run for a second as our units run forward. The reason it's better to pull back is because of your reinforcement spot. Your reinforcements almost always come out roughly where you started the battle. That means you want to stay near that spot, right? That's your aid in later stages of the battle. If you charge forward, all of a sudden your reinforcements are 200-300 meters behind you, and it takes a few minutes for them to join the fight. So at this stage, maybe the next wave of infantry, I'm going to move our archers back in preparation of that, right? Again, one of the keys to Battania, keep those archers safe. And there they are. The reinforcements popped up in the perfect spot. Now I'm going to send one division to charge and pull 2 other divisions back. And again, we're buying time, just like the first battle. So these guys, I don't even care what kind of infantry they are. Just put them to the two sides of your battlefield. And what that does is it clears up the center lanes for your archers to shoot. And then as the enemy closes, those two different infantry divisions can close on the enemy and sort of smash their finger in between them. Now that death spam there, that was from our sacrificial guys, those guys that charged, right? And that bought us time. That allowed all of our other troops to set up. Meanwhile, the sound you hear perpetually, did they just rout? I think they did. The sound you hear perpetually is the Fiend Champ just reloading and firing away. And this is, ironically, even more successful than all my fancy-dancy tactics. I don't remember. I think it was 350 casualties. The enemy routed earlier here, right? Way more troops of theirs routed off the battlefield. In our first battle, most of their forces didn't rout. But there you have it, right? Very simplified tactics. This is very similar, for those who are curious, it is very similar to the Valandian Smile of Death. It's a tactic we show that destroys cavalry and infantry. This tactic here is exactly set up to destroy the Nords. And there you have it, right? Bookmark this page, come back to it if you have a difficult time at some point with the DLC, with the Nords. This will work with other infantry divisions as well, and you should have resounding success just like this. All right, let's reload one more time and let's see what the sergeants can do. All right, get our divisions assigned here, and we'll turn it over to the Tesla. The Tesla will probably slam it into a wall and kill my wife and I. AI is getting better, but in Bannerlord, AI still stands for artificial imbecility. Let's see what they do, though. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. They have been adjusting it, right? To Tailworld's credit, they are aware that people want to see better AI. There's been some new improvements. We've seen some pretty good stuff. In fact, in the first episode of this series, the Sturgeon defense was pretty damn good, right? Or not this series, but another one of the series, the Sturgeons put up a pretty good defense. All right, shooting them out front. Their infantry and archers are way too jammed up. In fact, their archers they're kind of snarled in the melee. They're not moving them back, which is kind of curious. They just moved their archers back. And there's a huge amount of Nords, of course, just staring down our infantry. The death spam is starting to turn, and we'll speed through this, right? We'll definitely, we won't waste your time. Of course, if you've watched the end of the episode, you probably don't care. Now, the Fiend Champs are way too close. They're just standing here hyperventilating. Nobody can shoot because there's dudes in their way. They have a terrible angle, and their infantry is being blown up because, obviously, the Nord infantry is superior to the Battanian infantry. Now, the Falksmans are beasts, right? The Tier 5 Falksmen, the Wildling, the Battanians actually do have really good infantry, but obviously the Nords with their Tier 6 infantry are going to be superior. All right, just blowing through this because I don't anticipate a victory. They're doing all right, though, right? There's a fair amount of death spam, and if you look at the power bar, it's close. In fact, the Fiends, or the Battanians have almost the kill ratio here necessary to win. So maybe you didn't even need to watch the last 20 minutes, right? You just, sergeants in charge. Well, now it's going badly. We're getting swallowed up, and we might have run out of good troops here. We're getting zerged by these Nords, and this battle is over. And of course, I'm glad for that, right? I'm glad. Well, there's another reinforcement wave. I'm glad the Battanians and Kingdoms can't win just by hitting a couple buttons. It would defeat the whole purpose of our channel. So, fortunately, it continues to show the same thing, that tactics are important. They're essential for victory in difficult battles in Bannerlord. And I think, and I say this all the time, I think far more importantly than that, this is where you're going to have fun, friends. This is where you're going to feel that sense of accomplishment. You're going to stare at the sunrise, enjoy a sunrise after you lead your army to victory. Now, in order to do that, you want to keep coming by the channel, right? Please hit that like button on the way out. You want to subscribe if you want to see more. I appreciate you, friends. And I will see you fellas next time.